Welcome to the first podcast that everybody's been asking me to start off. I'm really excited to start this inaugural podcast off, and we still don't have a name yet. We're going to ask you for some insight on that, and I'm so excited to have my first guest, good friend, longtime colleague, George Hugh from Taurus Mortgages. George, welcome to the show.
My pleasure, Vince. Your first guest? Oh my God, I'm honored. Anyways, we've met a long...
Couldn't find anybody else.
Anyways, it's great to be here. I wouldn't miss it for anything. Just, you know, I've known Vince for so long, and we met him through my banking days when I was in the banking world, and one of the big reasons...
A long time ago.
A long time ago. And the funny thing is that when I first was going to leave the bank, I was actually going to become part of Vince's organization. I had a lot of respect for him, and I actually came onto the dark side, and I'm loving every minute of it. And now I've extended my excitement through this new venture that we're going to be doing and talking about, and so my pleasure to be here.
And we've been doing business together for a while, helping each other out. You know, I believe in the concept of co-opetition. As much as we're competitors, we cooperate on a lot of things, and we do a lot of wonderful business together. And we've just been excited about launching our first venture together, the real estate property management business, which we're going to get into a little bit later. But tell me a little bit about you and how we met.
Oh, you know, I met Vince a while back when I was in the bank world. I was actually looking after the broker section for ING Direct Canada. So Vince was one of our clients that we had to convince to kind of use us. So we became good friends, learned a lot from Vince, and learned so much from Vince that I actually left the bank world and became a mortgage broker myself 13 years ago. Everybody thought I was crazy, but I had this view, and we're going to touch on it a little bit later, but Vince has been an inspiration. I've watched him, and I always wanted to grow up to be like Vince. So now we're together.
Geez, we're all grown up and having some fun. Now, George, you did things a little bit differently. You took mortgage brokering to a different level because you integrated a real estate business into it. And you're helping clients from two aspects, right? You're helping them buy property and you're doing their mortgages. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you took a different approach to this whole game?
Yeah, my approach has always been actually around wealth building. So like the big banks, the big banks acquire clients through mortgages and savings products because that's what everybody has. But the real money comes when you cross-sell. And so I realized that when I did brokering at the start, my clients started to understand the value of a mortgage broker and the value of services that we brought. And I learned a lot of that through you, Vince, because I saw that, you know, Vince was growing his market share and he was helping a lot of people. So I love that. So I learned how to help people, and then people were asking me for more. So I actually created a real estate company that also focused on wealth building.
But you also tell people what properties not to buy. Like sometimes you're convincing clients, well, you know, if you're really going to go after something and you have this goal in mind, make sure you're set up properly and you start off with the right property to build off of. Tell us a little bit about that aspect of your business, which has propelled it into repeat clients, people building their portfolios with additional rental properties, and it's now launched us into this new venture, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
But, you know, is really built the trust with your client base that, hold on, this shit works and I'm building wealth. Yeah. Why don't you shed some light on that?
Yeah, so when a guy comes in and looking for a mortgage, I say I can help you with that. But what I try to do is help you with the long-term plan. So going through the mortgage process, I try to take a deep look into each individual client. What are your capabilities? What's your income? What's your job? What's the upside? Where are your struggles? And then we try to fix those things. Once we fix those things, get them into the house, you go, that's not too bad. I want to do more. But
the struggle part, everybody talks about, you know, the affordability crisis and people can't afford things. How do you navigate through that aspect where you're seeing people struggle with this idea that maybe I can't buy in this market? How do you deal with them?
So, you know, you got to look at the people and then you understand if they say, you know, the funny thing is a lot of people say, I can't buy in this market. But when you look at them, they're not that far off. So our job is to really identify gaps. So I'm very upfront with clients and I'm very real. This is your gap. So if you're, some people have the income, but they don't have the down payment. Some people have the down payment, they don't have the income. So You tell them their gap, and then we go and find solutions.
And that's where we've kind of met, because we've done some MIC deals together where we've helped some people fill in these gaps, get them in their homes, and they've adjusted their expectation a little bit to maybe buy something that maybe isn't their dream home, but it gets them in the market. And you've always been a big advocate of getting in the market at any point to start building up that equity. And you talked with one of our gentlemen that was setting up the podcast earlier about that $100,000 example where you could have 100 grand in the bank and invested in equities, and then having that same 100 grand investing in a home, and there's two different outcomes. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so you know what? I think a lot of people in this world, Vince, is scared about borrowing and mortgages and stuff. So to get to your point, a lot of people think that there's no difference between the housing market and the stock market. There's no difference. They're both assets that you can generate wealth from. But I'm going to give a little example about leveraging and how it differs. So most people don't leverage. You can buy stocks on margin, but I don't encourage it because it's a little too risky.
A little bit dangerous.
So if you have $100,000 and you invested in the stock market, for example, like an Apple stock, and it does a 20% return, on that 100 you make 20,000. If you buy a house, most people will take the 100 as a down payment and buy a house for 500,000. And if you earn 20% on the house, it's 20% of 500,000, not 20% of 100,000. So now your gain is 100,000. And that's a high level simplified, but that's how people make money. You leverage by borrowing and you get a bigger asset and your returns on a bigger asset.
But there's also the tax consequence.
Right.
Why don't you share some insight on that?
So, taxes is a huge component of wealth building, period. So I love houses, especially your first one, because it's 100% tax free. In Canada, we're allowed to own a home. Your principal residence is 100% tax free. If you own any additional homes, you're supposedly paying capital gains, which works out to about half of your personal taxes. So I'd rather earn money on a capital gain than personal taxes, for sure. There's a little secret that I've learned from a very young age is that, sure, if you have a second home and you sell it, you got to pay capital gains. But to me, I buy good properties because if I never sell it, I never pay taxes. And people go, what? What do you mean you never pay tax? You only trigger a liability when you sell it. So if I buy good properties, I always keep them. They become my future. It becomes my pension. It becomes my income when I'm actually not working. So I never plan on paying a penny on any property that I own because I don't sell it.
And George, we've also come into some good news in GTA, in Toronto, now Vaughan, where the bylaw has been changed where you can now have a property increase to 4 units as of right. Mm-hmm. So this repurposing idea can add another element of wealth to people on these investment properties, on these existing properties that they own, because they have that ability to convert a single family home up to 4 units. Mm-hmm. How much is that important to people to understand, and that significant opportunity that people have to start thinking about a little bit more detailed?
Man, Vince, when you first, I heard about the new bylaw changes and I was excited. When I actually went out to see some of the projects that you were working on, my God, I could jump and touch the moon. I couldn't dunk before, but I can dunk now after I heard you speaking about the properties you're working on. And why this is exciting is because the reason why people don't invest more and more money in real estate, because it's very capital intensive up front. But now you got a property, maybe it's worth 1.5 that you already own. And now I can convert it into 4 units.
It really is an interesting phenomenon because, having run a MIC for as long as I have, right, I'm always trying to avoid risk, right? And this market has created a lot of risk potholes that you have to navigate around. And one of the opportunities we saw a few years back was the repurposing of homes, especially these laneway suites in the city of Toronto. Now you can get garden suites. You now have opportunities to expand to 4 units. This high density strategy, because we can't build homes fast enough for people that want to be in this community, was an unbelievable opportunity. And that's where the mix shifted focus, and we started focusing on these repurposed projects because they're adding value. There's the opportunity for rental income, in addition to the borrower's income, if there is an event that causes them some duress where they can't make payments. So we really fell into an opportunity by what the market gave us. And we found those opportunities, and it's reaping some really good rewards. You've seen some of the projects. We're working with clients that want to do this on a regular basis. They have inherited homes. They have rental stock that they want to get a bigger return out of. And it's really posed an interesting opportunity. And I think that's what dovetailed into our new venture, the RPM Wealth Builders, the real estate property management company, is eliminating that last barrier to entry for buyers, where they worry about the landlord-tenant responsibilities and everything in between with dealing with investment properties. And maybe you could tell me a little bit about what excited you, because I know what excited me.
Yeah.
I don't know if people want to hear me talk about it, but
Yeah.
I'm always eager to understand how we wrapped up this whole process and added that last piece of the puzzle to accommodate that client that comes to us and says, holy shit, I got a one-stop shop that does everything.
Yeah.
Help me understand what prompted your excitement to this opportunity.
First thing I'm going to start this little response back to you is one-stop shop. But it doesn't stop there. One-stop trusted shop. Because you know what? The process of getting a home and converting it to 4 units involves mortgages, it involves real estate agents, it involves construction companies, it involves private lending, it involves tons of people. What I've seen in the past is that all those 4 pillars that I just talked about work independently of each other. So sometimes this guy has this big dream of buying a house and converting it to 4 units. So they work with a real estate agent independently. Then after they buy the house, they come to get financing. The problem is the real estate agent bought you a house and paid way too much money for it. So all of a sudden, a bad real estate agent, now I have to fund a bad purchase. The appraisals might come in low.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. But the beautiful thing about our venture right now, we talk to each other. So Vince, his client will go up to him and say, Vince, what can I qualify for? We communicate that with the real estate agent, and the real estate agent knows the budget. They go find a place, knowing that we're going to convert it. And then the construction budget has to come in place. Because a lot of times you hear it, minimum 25 to 50% over what they quote you. How many people have like 200,000 extra sitting on the sidelines? Our venture that we're going into, Vince, is so exciting because we all communicate each along the way. So the chances of disruption are very, very slim. And disruption, as we all know, costs money.
Yeah, and having the experience, having done it, we know what areas of the city are prime for this type of project. And I think that insight and experience is very helpful because we're not necessarily looking at places that are just for sale.
No.
We're knocking on doors. We're really trying to delve into communities to see who, you know, may not be ready to sell on the open market because of whatever reason, but we could give them some time to get out. We could negotiate a great opportunity for the buyer and give us time to do our permitting, get ready, project out the budget, plan for it, and execute.
Yeah.
And I think knowing what we're looking for
Yes.
is the key, and where we're looking for is as important. So I'm really excited about it, and this RPM Wealth Builder component, I think, is the last piece that provides everybody some peace of mind.
Oh, the RPM Wealth Builders it gets rid of the reasons why people don't do this. And you know, Vince and I have a great team that we put together on the RPM Wealth Builders. Got Armando running the show for us. He's as professional as they come.
Yeah.
He's going to look after you. Your problems will go away. So the last thing we want is, you don't want to do a project like this because you don't want to manage it. You don't have to worry about it. So, you know, it's very exciting for the start of 24 to be launching this initiative.
And George, we tend to come across a lot of people that have doubts about the market.
Yeah.
Right? People are worried about what's happening. Unfortunately, people look at things on a short-term view.
Yes.
Right? On a long-term view, where do you see the city going? Where do you see the GTA going to? And what's in store for the community, for buyers, for sellers, and the overall landscape?
You know, I've been doing real estate for a long time, and it's, you know, you got to buy when things are low. The problem with Canadians in general is that we're herd followers. Now, even though a house is $1 million. Like 50 people are lined up to buy it at $1 million. And the most frustrating thing, when there's a little bit of weakness and you can get that same $1 million house for 800,000, nobody wants it, Vince. It's kind of ridiculous. So what's happened is over the last few years, we've had COVID, supply chain issues, inflation concerns, rising rates. It's hit us one after the other. And so what that in my mind has created is pent up demand, because the amount of people that want to buy it's still here. The amount of supply is here. I hear the city talking about creating more housing. You know why? Because supply is here. When you have an imbalance, prices are going to go back up. I think we're starting to come up to that. And I think getting prices and homes cheap, the timeline is shrinking. I know we got a lot of renewals and stuff coming up.
Yeah, I think what people always forget about is the public sentiment. Like public sentiment, when it's negative, things don't move, right? Because you need that volume. And the reality right now is there's not a lot of confidence in the marketplace. People are worried about what's coming because of resetting rates on the renewals, disposable income getting eaten up by borrowing costs. And, with the amount of job losses taking place out there, there's some concern about job stability and income stability. So people are keeping everything tight, close to their chest, not really splurging, and they're just trying to weather the storm. And to your point, this could be the opportunity for someone that has the capital, has the wherewithal to strike, because you're going to hit people at their weakness and you're going to find opportunity. Because I always say the investment success is on the buy.
Yes.
If you could buy at the right price, that's what's going to propel you to success long term. You don't want to buy in the peak. You want to buy when things are depressed. And that's so hard to do because it's contra what everybody else is doing. And you've always talked about that. So give us your insight on going against the grain.
Yeah. So, if you're in the market to buy a house and you go on and listen to the news every single day about rising inflation, rising rates, rising cost of food, rising cost of gas, rising cost of servicing your mortgage, are you still going to buy a house? No, you're not. But you should be buying a house. I always tell people, you got to go against the grain. You got to go what the media, do the opposite of the media. Because I'm 100% believer. If you follow the media and the media is correct, and I believe that 90% of the people do. If you follow the media and it's correct, then 90% of the people should be rich and 10% poor. Is that not true?
That's what you always say.
What's the actual?
It's the opposite.
100%. 10% are rich and 90% poor. And in fact, that gap's getting bigger. In fact, you know what? Of all the billionaires in North America, since COVID started, they've increased the value of their assets by 70%. So every billionaire is $700 million richer. But when I look at the other 90%, they're all poor. What's the difference?
Struggling. The food bank lines are going through the roof.
You've seen it.
Affordability is going nuts. People are homeless.
Yes.
Fabric Land just closed down in our plaza.
Yeah,
we have
for
homeless people living out front.
Yeah.
Like it's real.
It's
and,
real.
And we're seeing the impacts of what high borrowing costs can do, how spending and inflation can impact people.
It can.
And listen, this is a phenomena that we're going to have to brace ourselves with over the next 12 to 18 months to weather.
Yeah.
But if you have the foresight and the commitment to take advantage of these opportunities, you're going to do very well right now. And that's hard to do for people because they can't wrap their head around what the media is telling them. And listen, I did media for 19 years on CP24's Hot Property. And the one thing I learned very well down there is the tagline, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yes.
They want bad news. Bad news attracts eyeballs, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for viewership numbers to go up. And unfortunately, this is what they sell.
Yeah.
So on that note, I want to talk a little bit about the difficulty that people are experiencing right now qualifying for mortgages and what type of solutions are out there. I've talked a little bit about on the IG show about how we're seeing more people come on title when they buy homes. When we started in this business, that everybody would buy a home with two people on title, people get married, they buy their first home. And now we've seen our software have to be expanded to attract 5, 6, 7 applicants on a deal.
Yeah.
And they're doing all these enhancements in the technology to accommodate that because more and more people are needed. What are you seeing? Are you seeing more of that in your business? Are you seeing some friction points in that approval process?
You know, the approval process is very difficult today, but I can tell you it's never been easy. Have you ever thought of a time in your entire career where you can just walk up to the bank and it's not stressful?
It's always stressful.
It's always stressful, whether you're buying a home 50 years ago or buying it today. It's always stressful, but you always have to make the ends meet. So I always open up the door right now. It's never going to be easy. If rates come back down, it's not going to be easy because the prices are going to go up. So now you're funding it's never easy. So what I like about our venture and what we plan on doing to help our clients is give them the confidence to actually execute. Because I can tell you right now, everybody wants to buy a house, but nobody has the knowledge and the guts to actually do it. But I honestly believe that we're positioning ourselves to be able to share our knowledge, our experience, what we've gone through. That gives people confidence. I know we were talking right before the show with one of our guys that were helping us with this podcast, and he was bouncing off the ceiling just hearing what we were talking about.
He was.
And you know what? I see it every day. If he's bouncing off the ceiling, can you imagine all the other people that listen to us talk? They're going to bounce off the ceiling because it's an opportunity. And it was amazing to me that he's actually talking about buying another house. He hasn't even closed on one house yet. But that's what it's all about.
It's true, because when I first started with him and I did his mortgage, he was nervous. He didn't understand the process. He was self-employed, so that was a stigma that he was dealing with because he felt that he wasn't wanted by the banks, right? Mm-hmm. And we sat down with him, explained everything, and walked him through the process, and it worked out fantastic. And he's excited, wants to buy 2, 3, 4 homes.
I know,
but, good. You know, I want to talk about one thing you've done, and I'm really proud of you for doing this because it's so innovative. You hooked up with a comedian, John Paul, and you created a program called Wealth Building No Joke. Mm-hmm. And John Paul was self-employed. Mm-hmm. And you guys talk about this in your presentation about how you helped them achieve success with real estate. How has that journey been for you? And what has been the reaction from the people that attend your seminars? Because I've been there and I saw the excitement in the room, and I really like the approach because it takes a new element into the home buying process. And I've always found that intriguing and exciting to see someone take it to the next level. Mm-hmm. Help me understand how that came about and what prompted this initiative, because I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's funny that I met John Paul probably around 12 years ago. He walked into my office, and it was 12 years ago, and people were struggling 12 years ago. It's not a new phenomenon since COVID started. People have been struggling for a while, and when John Paul came in to my office, I actually met him before because he was on stage doing comedy act, right? And I said, I know you, and we hit it off.
And he opens up for Russell Peters.
He opens up for Russell.
He's on breakfast television now. He's got a gig and
done well. And so I was going to help him fix his problem. I said, and I'm going to turn you to a millionaire. Here, and he thought, he's a comedian. He thought I was making a joke. He started laughing. Well, you know, fast forward 12 years later, he's a property manager.
He's doing well.
Extra properties. He's crossed that stigma, and people look up to him. And it's not that I'm so happy that he's done well, but I love, and I'm sure you're the exact same way, Vince, when people succeed, it drives me more than just the money. It's helping people.
And I think that's why I want to do this, right? Is use our knowledge and our experience. Like, I've been doing this longer than an amortization schedule, for Christ's sake. So, you know, this is a long time. There's a lot of knowledge there. And you're right. You get this sensation of just euphoria when you can help somebody achieve something they didn't think that they could do. And I think that's why education's paramount for me. I think that's why it's my priority. That's why I focus on the whole educational component. And that's why I like doing this, because when we're meeting with clients, showing them the whole cycle and the whole process, and we're educating, they really get a different experience than just a transactional type service, right? And they come back and they become your friends, and they invite you to things, and they see you as part of their family.
Yeah.
And it means a whole lot in the long run because you made a difference. And I think that's what we're here to do. We're here to help people understand that there is opportunity within the gray area, within the dark themes of our economy. And you just got to find the right people.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about how you and your team have worked with your clients, because you have a team.
Yep.
You're not just a one-man show. You got some great people I've met, and I'm not saying that because you're sitting here.
Yeah.
It's just that it's what gravitated me to get in business with you, with RPM Wealth Builders.
Yeah.
And you're very picky with your staff.
Yes.
That it's painful. But what do you want from your team?
You know what? Being picky is not me. I'm picky because my clients demand me being picky. And you know what? In this world, Vince, it's so hard to get a client, a good client. I get, you know what? Like, I have a little bit of a social media presence, and I get a lot of clicks and I get a lot of applications. But when I talk to them, like, less than 10% of them are pretty good. I got to talk to 10 people to get one good client. So when I get these good clients, I'm picky in the sense that I don't want to lose these clients. In fact, like you said, we build a good repertoire, we build trust, and we treat them like family. And what happens when you piss off family? It's not a good outcome.
Oh, it's not good.
You know, it's not good. And, you know, people say, George, if 7 out of 10 people are happy with your service and 3 are not. And I think to myself, if I do 200 transactions a year, if 7 out of 10 are really happy with me, that means that 90 people aren't. Those 90 people can destroy me. So I just go for 10 out of 10. That's what I'm thinking.
It is true that you're only as good as your weakest link.
On your last deal.
On your last deal.
Yeah.
But you're only as strong as your weakest link as well. So you got to have that strong team. You got to have that cohesion. And I think people like to deal with teams. They want to know that if you can't be reached, someone else can be.
Yeah.
Because communication's so vital today. And I still believe that the human touch is important. You could automate, you could do emails, you could do all that fun stuff, but people still want to pick up the phone and call someone and have some comfort knowing that, okay, someone can explain this to me, and if I can't read in between the lines of an email. And that's what we're going to do. High touch, high customization, good strategies, and work with people. So I want to wrap things up, and I want to ask you about where you think 2024 will go as far as our industry, policy, and how this industry could change.
Yeah. Okay. 2024, I'm very optimistic. And I'm optimistic because it hasn't been great market for 2 years. So it's not like I'm bullish, but I do think it's at a point where the market has finally changed. And I don't think it's going to go back to normal the way it used to be, but it will be some form of normalcy. So we're getting back to more, people are not as concerned, people are feeling a little more secure and stuff. And we've seen, you know, inflation's coming back to where the governments of North America want it to be. So that'll bring some kind of normalcy. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. And, you know, so the opportunity will be there. Like we talked about it before, Vince. There's so many ways in this world to make money. We happen to like real estate and stuff like that. Like I'm passionate about that. You can't do everything. So we're going to focus on real estate, and I think it's going to be a pretty good year. Okay?
About the economic situation with policy. Like, do you think the government is going to be pushed into a situation where they're going to have to make some changes with policy? You know, the stress test obviously indicated that there's not going to be much change with that in the coming year. Do you think there's anything coming down the pipe? Like all this accelerator fund stuff, I don't believe anything, it's going to do anything. But, you know, where do you see that aspect of the industry going?
Well, before COVID, you know, our rates went down too low. And I actually think the reason why we got ourselves into this trouble, because the world was addicted to low rates, and that policy to get rates down to almost 0%.
It's like a heroin.
Yeah, it is. It fueled the market. And it created a problem that we've been dealing with for 4 years. So I think it's, you know, where in hindsight, the stress test actually helped Canada.
It did. It's the unsung hero.
Yeah.
And help people from themselves.
Right. So anyway, so as far as policy control, people are dreaming to think that the government's going to make changes to fuel the housing market again.
You have to let the market deal with itself,
Yes.
right? And sadly, there's going to be some victims. There's going to be some carnage. There's going to be some shrapnel spread about, and people are going to get some bruises. That's life.
It's life.
Right? And what I say to those people is you didn't properly assess the risk.
Yes.
And you may have over-leveraged.
Right.
And anticipated that things were going to always be the same.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the market doesn't work that way. People don't like hearing that. I get a lot of bad comments from those statements all the time. But the reality is that's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not here to bullshit anybody. I'm not here to sugarcoat what's going to happen. But it's going to be ugly for some, and there's going to be significant opportunity for others. And this is where you just got to understand. You have to deal with professionals.
Yeah.
You have to deal with experienced people that know what they're doing and help you and walk you through this process.
Yes.
So, George, on that note, I want to thank you for
problem.
being the first guest of the inaugural podcast that doesn't have a name. So I encourage everybody who's watching, please send it in a note, subscribe, share, tell me what you think we should call this thing, and we'll have a little contest. Maybe we'll give something away. But I want to thank you for coming on. I know it's an off day, and I took you away from your family, so thank you.
It's my pleasure, Vince. This is a wonderful chat. These are real things that we're talking about, and I'm sure, everybody needs answers. And you know what? I couldn't be more. On another note, instead of talking on this podcast, I can't wait to start our journey together. And it's the sky's the limit.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
So on that note, folks, drop us your comments on what you think of the new format. And I'm always open for ideas. So please give me your suggestion on what we should call the show. Thanks again.